Welcome to Stayf Doodles. I'm Stayf, Dutch artist, and I've made several tutorials on the animation app ToonSquid. And I've got some questions, and in this video I'm going to answer some of these questions. ToonSquid is a great app, and it's developed by one person, and you can find more information about ToonSquid because they also have, or he also has, his own YouTube channel, and I'll leave a link below this video. And when you go to ToonSquid, open it up and go to the main library, you can find the help function. And in the help function you also have the handbook, and in the handbook you can find all the features of ToonSquid. So if you're not sure how features are working, just check out the handbook. And he also has a home page, and there's also support with frequently asked questions, and when you press on it you can find the most common questions about ToonSquid. But there's also a discussion board, and there you need to log in, and if you have any questions he will answer the questions, or other users of ToonSquid will. And I got some questions for the tutorials I made on my YouTube channel, and I'm just going to go over these questions now. So the first question is by Slip the Trap. Nice, thanks. I just wish there were more tutorials showing how to import art from Procreate into ToonSquid and animate using that art. It seems like the two apps should work well together. Even better, drop Procreate's animation and replace it with ToonSquid. Well, I can dream. At this point I'm very invested and comfortable using Procreate. It seems a shame to give up for better animation. Thoughts? At this point you cannot import PSDs, because that would be great, you know, if you work in Photoshop or have any other apps you work in, then you could, you know, import a PSD and then have all the files of the PSD. But it's not possible because I looked it up on the discussion board. He's still working on it, and the best thing you can do is just export a PSD file into single PNGs and then import it into ToonSquid. Here's another question by Shifarma 9658. So it can't make shape tweening. Well, you can do shape tweening in ToonSquid, but most of the time you're using vector images. So I'm just going to open up a new file. With shape tweening you always use vector images, and you can of course use the shapes, but then shape tweening doesn't work. When you go up you see snapping and then freehand. So you have to choose freehand if you want to draw a freehand object, or you can choose ellipse, rectangle, or rounded. I'm just going to choose rectangle and then draw a rectangle. And when you open up the timeline and add the keyframes, and I'm just going to extend this just to have a little bit more frames, and you need to use the control points. And if you change the control points you can make a shape tween. You can also add a freehand drawing. It's going to frame 1. And just draw a shape and then close it. So here's the shape. I'm gonna extend it. And I'm gonna change the shape by just dragging the points. And in this way, you can make a shape tween. A question by Thing Yuan Wang 5004 is there a folder option? Because it terrifies me to see all of the layers. There is a folder option. When you go to the timeline and press on the plus, then you can create a group. Then select the layers and drag it into the group. And then you have a folder into your timeline. The next question is by Nzatsi. Hi Stayf, how are you importing oversized backgrounds into ToonSquid? Or are you somehow bringing your character into an oversized scene? But no symbol export in ToonSquid. Exports as GIF with white background. Thank you. I'm just going to open up a new file, just 1920 by 1080. And what I do is I create a file much bigger in Procreate, then I export it as PNGs. And then I'll import it into ToonSquid. And most of the time I just import it or export it to files so I can open it up in ToonSquid. So now I have two images which are much bigger than the screen size. And with the transform tool I make them a little bit bigger. Then I can animate it with the camera. So press on the plus and then on camera. And I'm just going to extend. Do the same thing for this one. And then you can zoom in or zoom out or do a pan with the camera. Just go to frame 1. Select the camera, then go to the last frame and then drag the camera. And the next question is by Pattern Art 269. Can you make it where if I use my lasso, I can then just select it what I lassoed? And you can use the Lasso tool by just pressing on the selection tool, and then here's the freehand Lasso tool, and I just want to select the head of Horus Hippo. And when you select it, when you go to the properties, always leave it on pixel layer. When you're on the animation layer, you cannot do anything with your selections. And here a question about a username I cannot pronounce, but excuse me, I'm new to this app and I really want to know how you squeeze the shape in ToonSquid, like what you animate the hippo head. Please help. This was a question for an animation I did of Horus Hippo, and you can select something and then squeeze it with the transform tool. I'll just show you. So now I tapped on the transform tool, and when you go up, you can, by default it's set to uniform, but you also have freeform, and with freeform you can squeeze it, and there's now even a perspective, so you can draw it into perspective or drag it into perspective, and a warp function. So with this you can do a lot of adjustments. And the next question is by All Movie World 7072. Am I the only one Android animator who don't have any PC or iPad? Can they publish an Android version of it? ToonSquid will not be available for Android because I checked the boards and the developer said, well, I'm not going to make an Android version of it yet, because for Android it's always very difficult to make an app that will work on all Android devices. And the next question is, how can I set frames to seconds? You cannot set frames to seconds, not if you're making a new project. You just see the frames, but there's a handy little trick and it's in the timeline, and I'll just show you. There's not a way you can set the frames to second when you open up a new file, but what you can do, and I just will play it, and now it's all frames. But when you go to the timeline and then squeeze it, you see that now it's set to seconds. So you just have to zoom in on or zoom out on the timeline, and then you will see the seconds. And the last question is by Badless. Is there a way to convert the motion tween into keyframes, or is there a way to make keyframes but turn off the tweening? Well, there's not an option for it yet. If you have any questions or want new features in ToonSquid, just go to the ToonSquid board and go to Help, Support, then you go to the toonsquid.com, and there is a discussion board. And when you go to the discussion board, you can, ask for new features in ToonSquid. So these are my answers to the questions about ToonSquid. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you like it, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to hit that notification bell, because each time I upload a new video, you get a notification. Drawing is fun, and practice makes perfect. See you next time. Doodles!